For millenniums, humans have been looking for a way to control the future. And in this episode of Erudite Magic, we're going to be talking about a book that purports to help you do exactly that. The book is A Florin Spun, and the subtitle is The Controlled Coin Toss and Its Applications to the World of Magic and Mentalism. Put quite simply, the author Hector Chadwick is going to help you and me control whether a coin flip comes up heads or tails. Sound interesting? Let's find out who this is, whether this book is practical, and whether it's worth the price. But first, who is Hector Chadwick and what makes him think that he can master destiny? Hector Chadwick is the pen name of Stephen Long, a creative mind and magic author from the UK. Stephen is perhaps best known for being one of the co-writers of Darren Brown's TV shows, including Apocalypse, The Push, Sacrifice, and Svengali. Perhaps most germane to our discussion is that he is an excellent magic author. You likely have already heard his name in The Definitive Mental Mysteries of Hector Chadwick, which I've reviewed over here. And now he's presenting a Florin Spun for the magic community's careful consideration. So what is a Florin Spun? This is a book about controlling the outcome of a coin toss, whether it's done by the performer, by the participant, whether you catch it palm up, whether you catch it palm down, you flip it onto the back of your hand, it's caught by the participant, or even spun on a table. We'll talk more about the specifics in just a second. As far as the physical characteristics, this is a golden-colored, cloth-bound hardback with approximately 150 pages. It was written, designed, illustrated, and self-published by Hector Chadwick / Stephen Long. For simplicity's sake, I'm going to continue to call him Hector. I want to thank Don's Magic and Books for sponsoring this episode of Erudite Magic. Don is one place I know that you won't have to take a chance like you would on a coin flip to know that you're going to be able to find a book at a great price to add to your magic library. He offers a complete spectrum of magic books, everything from the latest and greatest to older, out-of-print titles that are hard to come by in physical format. So if you love magic books as much as I do, then check out Don's website via the link that I'm going to drop down in the description below. I know that once you start shopping with him, you'll qualify for fast and free shipping quickly with his minimum thresholds in the United States. And you'll love working with someone that you know loves magic books as much as you and me. So head over to Don's website this week, check out what he has to offer, and tell him I sent you. Back to the review. So what do you get in this book? The core of the material are a few different techniques to control the outcome, that is, heads or tails, on a coin toss. The primary technique involves flipping a coin the way you would normally expect someone to, like a ref at an NFL game. You balance the coin on your fingers, flick it up in the air, and it comes down heads or tails. And with the way that this technique is taught, you can have someone call it while it's in the air and still be able to control the outcome. Within this primary technique, he'll also teach you ways to continue that control through the catch, whether that's catching it with an open palm up, the palm down, catching it and flipping it. You get the idea. And there are other techniques that he explores, including a few spinning the coin on the table, with one method using a traditional normal coin and another using a gimmicked or altered coin. But it's not just all technique. In addition to the practical aspects of controlling this outcome manipulation, if you will, you're also treated to a history of magicians' attempts to publish methods to accomplish this, most of which were impractical at best and impossible at worst. It's slightly interesting to note that magicians have been grappling with this subject for centuries, including one of the original write-ups in the first English language magic book ever published, The Discovery of Witchcraft. Later, Professor Hoffman tackled the subject in his Modern Magic under the title A Florin Spun, from which this book derives its name. So you have the techniques, you have the history, but perhaps almost as importantly, you're receiving a few ideas on how you could deploy these techniques to add texture to your performances and make your show more unique. There are 3 specific examples of this. One from a mentalist who's performing a Russian roulette style routine, a Jason Ladany type character who uses the routine within a gambling style demonstration, and an individual who's just meeting with some friends to perform this as a stunt. This is Hector's attempt at explaining why even bother to put the work in to learn this technique. Let's talk for a second about whether or not this is practical. In a word, yes. You can learn and deploy these techniques. While many of them will take time and practice to make them reliable, I have no doubt that they will work. I actually haven't put the effort in yet because I just received the book this week, but I plan to explore the core method. While I believe in the methods and their practicality, he still presents some options that I personally would feel uncomfortable with, like allowing my participant to catch the coin themselves, or even to allow them to flip it to try to determine the outcome. So while you are getting practical methods, not all of them will work as well or as risk-free as others. While there is some value to these thoughts about allowing participants to help you, I felt like it was there to maybe fill out the book a little bit more. Speaking of which, let's talk about the size of the book in relation to its value. I mentioned earlier that the book is 150 pages, but it's still a slim volume. In fact, I read it in basically one sitting. The page width is narrower than a typical book, and the margins are fairly generous. Between each of the chapters, there are some cultural references to coin flips or coin tosses, which are interesting. For example, there are references to movies, books, and even the Bible. But each one also adds 3 to 4 pages of fill between the chapters. Now, I'm not saying that this book is fluff, but I wouldn't exactly call this an encyclopedia. What I would call it is a bespoke book covering a unique topic more deeply than any other attempt that I've seen. I want to add at this point that I bought this book with my own money. It wasn't a review copy, and it's definitely on the steep side for a smaller book at the $50 retail price. But like most books, it's never just about the cost, it's about the value. So is there any value here? Absolutely. Given the power of a coin toss and the fortunes that can be made or lost on one, there's significant power in the ability to be able to control the outcome of that. In fact, at the end of the book, there's even a story about a gambler who had mastered a technique. No one knows for sure if he was using the techniques that Hector is teaching in this book, but who had mastered the technique of flipping a coin, even allowing participants to flip coins, and he shares some first-hand accounts from people who were fleeced by this gambler and witnessed him make a fortune taking advantage of other compulsive gamblers. Now, of course, the author is very careful to point out from the very beginning of the book that these techniques should be used for entertainment purposes only. But I think the point is there is value in being able to control a coin toss. It's going to take work to get the basic core technique down, but it was also kind of interesting to take a break from the usual magic book of card trick after card trick after card trick and focus in on one topic fairly completely. In my opinion, I think this book is a little bit pricey. I would have loved to have seen it for something a little bit closer to $30 or $35, although it's well within the rights of the author to charge whatever he thinks it's worth. And the consumer, you and me, are the ultimate arbiters of what the book is worth. I certainly am not upset with my purchase, and I will pursue the technique. The author gives you clear, practical steps on how to control this coin toss, as well as presentational ideas that hooked me while I was reading them. So I'm confident that if you're interested in the topic or just want a beautiful book you can reference as often as you need it, you can find some value here. If you're interested in the topic of value versus cost, then subscribe to my newsletter, the Erudite Magic Digest, via the link down in the description below, where we can continue this conversation in my weekly newsletter. If you like gambling-style routines to add texture to your magic show, or just for fun to share with your friends, then check out this review I did of Bob Farmer's Flim Flam Conglomeration. As always, my friends, I appreciate you watching, and until next time, keep reading.